Hello, mighty companion. This is Earl Purdy, and I want to welcome you to Hardcore Course in Miracles. And we're going to talk about, from a Course in Miracles perspective, we're going to talk about how you can let any problem be solved. You know that problem that you might think you have? We're going to talk about, from a Course in Miracles perspective, how you can have all your problems solved. Would you like to know how you can have all your problems solved? So we're going to do, from A Course in Miracles, a lesson that deals with let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Would you like that problem solved? Would you like that problem that you've been thinking about, that perhaps was on your mind, just today? Would you like to have that situation, that circumstance healed? Would you like to have that problem solved? Well, that's what we're going to talk about from A Course in Miracles. So I'm going to say what the lesson is. Let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let you recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Would you like to have your problem solved? There are some lessons that I like to go over and approach from different angles to make sure that we got the solution from A Course in Miracles. We're going to be doing lesson 79 in the Course in Miracles workbook, in the blue book. It's going to be page 141, lesson 79 in the Course in Miracles workbook. That's what we're going to be doing. So take a breath. Take a breath. I'm so glad to be here with you. I'm so glad to be here with you. Take a breath. So what is it that keeps a problem from being solved? Well, the first thing we need to do is remember the attitude that we need to have. Remember only this: you need not believe the ideas that I'm about to share with you. You need not accept the ideas. You need not even welcome the ideas that I'm about to share with you from A Course in Miracles. Some of the ideas you may actively resist. Do you know that some of the ideas you may actively resist? And some of the ideas you may find hard to believe. What? Some of these ideas you may find hard to believe. I say what? Some of these ideas you may find hard to believe. Some of these ideas you may find hard to believe. Some of these ideas you may find hard to believe. Some of these ideas that I'm about to share with you from A Course in Miracles might just startle you, actually. I want to get this up so that I can monitor what I'm doing while we're doing this. Some of these ideas might be hard to believe. Some of these ideas might be quite startling. But you're not being asked to judge and analyze the ideas at all. You're not being asked to judge and analyze the ideas at all. It's the use of the ideas that will give the ideas meaning to you and will show you that the ideas are true. It's using the ideas that I'm about to give you from A Course in Miracles. It's using the ideas, using their use that will give the ideas meaning to you and will show you that the ideas are true. I'm so glad to be with you. Hello, mighty companions. It's always a pleasure to be with you. So we're going to be lesson 79 in the blue book, in the workbook. We're going to be on page 141. And I'm the divine repetition teacher. I'm your remembering coach. I have been a teacher and a student of A Course in Miracles over 4 decades. And it is my full-time occupation in this world is that I share the Course in Miracles. So if you have a problem right now, I'd like you to think of some problem that you think you have right now, some situation that you think you are dealing with right now. And it would be great just to start out with one, right? And we're going to go through this together. The first line says, a problem can't be solved if you don't know what it is. So if you have, does that mean then that if you have a problem and it's been a recurring problem and you have not been able to solve that problem? Well, the Course in Miracles says, well, the reason why you haven't been able to solve that problem is because the truth is you don't know what the problem really is. A problem can't be solved if you don't know what it is. A problem can't be solved if you don't know what it is. So does that mean that a problem in your life that hasn't been solved, does that mean that you really don't know what the problem is? Yeah. If you're always having problems in relationships, then the truth is you don't know what your problem in relationships really is. So that means even if the problem is already solved, you'll still have the problem if you don't know what the problem is. Because you won't recognize that the problem has been solved if you don't recognize what the problem is. This is the situation of the world. What is the situation of the world? The situation of the world, which is the problem of separation, which is the only problem. So according to the Course in Miracles, what's the only problem that we have? The only problem that we have is that we don't realize that our only problem is separation. Separation is the only problem. I think I'm separate from God. I think I'm separate from the universe. I think I'm separate from the higher power. I think I'm separate from you. So the problem is separation. And that's the only problem. But the good news is that problem of separation has already been solved. So why is it that we don't recognize the problem has been solved? Because we don't recognize the problem is separation. So let me give you an example. If you tell yourself that any problem that you're having right now is caused by anything other than your separation from God, your sense of separation from your higher power, your sense of separation from your source, then you don't know what the problem is. Whatever problem you think you have, I don't care what level you think that problem is on, whether it's a health problem or financial problem or career problem or a relationship problem, anything that you're telling yourself that's the problem, but you haven't been able to solve it, you need to admit to yourself that you don't really know what the problem is. Now, everybody in this world seems to have their own special problems. Everybody we talk to, they seem to have their own special issues, their own special problems. Yet, all the problems are all the same. Every problem that we have are all the same. So how do you accept the one solution that will solve all your problems? Do you know I'm going to tell you that? I'm going to tell you exactly how to resolve every problem that you think you have. So the first thing you want to tell yourself is that you don't have many different problems. What? Tell yourself, I do not have many different problems. Really, all my problems are the same. All my problems are just one problem. Every problem I have and every problem that you have is just a manifestation of one problem. Everything that you're seeing as a problem is just a manifestation of one problem. So what you want to do, you want to tell yourself, all my problems are the same. 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 Why would you tell yourself all your problems are the same? You would tell yourself all your problems are the same so that you can accept the one solution that's going to solve all your problems. Now, at the very beginning, if you recall, at the very beginning, I told you that you didn't have to believe the ideas, you didn't have to accept the ideas, you didn't have to welcome the ideas, and no matter what your reaction to the ideas may be, use the idea. So this is one of the ideas. All your special problems are all the same. All your special problems are all the same. And all your problems must be recognized as one problem if you are going to accept the solution that's going to solve all your problems. Who can see that a problem has been solved if they think the problem is something else other than what the problem really is? See, right now we're being given the answer to every problem that we think we have. So if you think that your partner not treating you the way you want to be treated is the problem, but you still keep having that problem, then that means you haven't recognized what the answer is. Because the answer is, the problem is separation. The problem is separation from God, separation from truth. Separation is the problem. Not knowing my connection to the source, not knowing my connection to the Creator, not knowing the connection that I have with my source. That's my problem. Every problem is a God problem. Every problem is a God problem. Every problem is a problem that's related to believing that you're separate from love, believing that you're separate from your Creator. Because if you knew that you were completely connected, if you really knew that you were connected to God, if you knew you were connected to your source, then what would you be afraid of? What would you be worried about? What problems would you really have? Am I aware that as soon as I start talking about God or spirit, that some people completely get turned off and they don't really want to hear what's being said? Of course, I understand, but that's not going to stop me from talking about God. It's not going to stop me from talking about the real problem. Because I'm teaching what I need to learn, and the Course in Miracles teaches that you teach best what you most need to learn. And I want to end in the sense of my separation from my Creator. And so in order to do that, I have to share what I want to believe. So that's what I'm doing right now. So if you think your problem is anything other than a spiritual problem, if you think your problem is anything other than an identity problem, see, the problem is you've forgotten. What is it that you've forgotten? If you think you have a problem, you have forgotten God. You've forgotten your connection to your source. So since I'm giving the answer, a person that doesn't believe the answer has anything to do with their spiritual connection to their source, then that person is not going to hear the answer that the Course in Miracles is giving, because they already think the problem is something else. Do you know that's the position in which you find yourself right now? Do you know you have the answer, especially if you got the Course in Miracles? You have the answer. But even though you have the answer, what is it that you're still uncertain of? Well, the Course says you are still uncertain about what the problem is. You still might be doubting that the problem is believing that you're separate from God, believing that you're separate from your source. A long series of different problems seem to confront you. And as each problem is solved, as each problem is settled, the next problem, and then the next problem, and then the next problem comes up. Have you ever noticed that there never seems to be an end to problems or situations that you have to deal with? Have you noticed that there is no time in which you feel completely free of problems and at peace? Have you noticed that? That there's no time that you feel completely, totally free of any kind of problems and completely at peace. So, what is the temptation to keep your problems of separation unsolved? There are certain points that I want you to remember. Point number one from the course is every problem that you think you have is an expression of one problem, believing that you are separate from your source, believing that you're not connected to God. That's the problem. Now, you may think the problem is the way you handle your finances, or you may think the problem is the way you handle relationships. You may think the problem is something that somebody else is doing to you or something outside yourself. But that's not really the problem. So if I tell you that your problem is that you need to get rid of every block to love, every block to your connection to God, then that's not going to turn you on, because if you think the problem is something other than the real problem, then you won't recognize the problem. And there seems to be no end to them. There seems to be no time that you feel completely free of problems and at peace. And do you know that you might have a temptation? What is the temptation? The temptation is to keep the problem unsolved. The problem of what? The problem of my sense of separation from my source. The world seems like it's presenting you with a lot of problems, a vast number of problems. And it looks like each one of these problems require a different answer. Does it look like to you that your problems, you need a lot of different answers to a lot of different problems? But the Course in Miracles is saying to us that the world seems to present you with a vast number of problems, each requiring a different answer. The world seems to present you with a vast number of problems, each requiring a different answer. And that's a perception. So when you have the perception that you're being presented with a lot of different problems that require different answers, that perception, do you know that perception places you in a position in which your problem solving must be inadequate and failure is inevitable? So what makes your problem solving inadequate? What is it that makes a person fail at solving their problems? Whenever they think that they're being presented with a lot of different problems that need a lot of different answers. So when you think that you have a lot of problems that all require different answers, then you have put yourself in a position where solving the problem is not going to happen, that you're going to fail when it comes to solving this problem. I'm the divine repetition teacher. I am your remembering coach. So it's much more important that you remember what the Course in Miracles is saying rather than analyzing what the Course in Miracles is saying. Do not analyze the Course in Miracles. Do not fall for the I'm going to analyze the Course in Miracles trick. You don't want to analyze the Course in Miracles. You want to remember what it's saying. And what is it that we've heard? Well, we've heard that you can't solve this problem that you have if you don't know what the problem really is. And if the problem is solved, you won't recognize that the problem has been solved because you don't recognize what the problem is. It looks like people have a lot of different problems, but really every problem that we have is the same problem: separation from love, separation from the higher power, separation from our source. The fact that we have lost awareness of who we really are as spiritual beings, that we have forgotten that we are the creators of our experience, that we are not the victim of anything that we see, that we've forgotten that we're responsible for what we see and how we see it. We've forgotten that we're the ones that's choosing the feelings that we experience, and we're the one that's deciding on the goals that we want to achieve. And we've forgotten that everything that seems to happen to us is something that we ask for at some level and then receive it as we have asked, because we are the ones who make our own perceptions of reality. Every one of us makes our own perception of what's going on. And then we are all reacting to our own perceptions of what's going on. So if you've had a problem and it looks like it's a problem that you haven't been able to solve, the first thing you should tell yourself is, I don't really recognize what my financial problem really is. I don't really recognize what my relationship problem really is. I don't really recognize what's causing my health problem. If I haven't been able to get rid of the problem, it means I don't really know what the problem really is. So what is the Course in Miracles telling me that the problem really is? The Course in Miracles is saying the problem really is separation. That you don't know your connection to your Creator, your higher power, love. So if I tell you the answer to your problem, but you think the problem is something else, then when I give you the answer, you won't think the answer has any relevance. And that's the position that a person with a problem finds themselves right now. The Course in Miracles is giving you the answer, but you're still not certain about what your problem is. And it looks like there's a lot of problems that are confronting you. And it looks like as soon as you get one problem solved, then another problem comes up and another problem comes up. And so there seems like there's no end to the problems. Sometimes it looks like there's absolutely no end to the situations and problems that I'm dealing with. And that there's no time when you feel completely free of problems and completely at peace. But do you know that if you keep telling yourself that you have many problems, that actually keeps the problem from being resolved? Are you aware that the world seems to present you with a vast number of problems, and it looks like each one of these problems require a different answer? So when you have the perception that you have a lot of different problems and those problems require many different answers, then you are putting yourself in a position where your problem solving is not going to work, that your problem solving is going to be inevitable, that your problem solving is going to fail. If you tell yourself that you have a lot of different problems that require a lot of different answers, then you're going to fail to solve your problems. Can anybody solve all the problems that the world seems to have? Do you think there's anybody that can solve all the problems of the world? Well, if you think there's any one person that can solve all the problems of the world, then you're making a mistake. No one could solve all the problems that the world appears to hold. Listen to what I'm saying. No one could solve all the problems the world appears to hold. Because the problems of the world seem to be on so many levels. The problems of the world seem to be in such varying forms. And the problems of the world seem to have such varied content that all the different problems of the world, and sometimes all the different problems that it might seem like you have in your life, look like they're confronting you with what kind of situation? It looks like we're being confronted with an impossible situation. When you listen to the news and you watch the television and you listen to your friends and you deal with all the different things that you have to deal with in your day-to-day life, it can actually look like you're dealing with an impossible situation. And the Course in Miracles is saying, if it looks like you're dealing with an impossible situation, if it looks like you're dealing with so many problems and different issues, and it looks like there's so many different issues and problems in the world, then what kind of emotional response are you going to have? You're going to have the emotional response of dismay and depression. So where does depression come from? Depression comes from thinking that you are being denied something that you want and you can't have it. So if I want to have all my problems solved, and it looks like in the world there are so many problems and at so many levels coming at us in so many different ways, then it's actually natural that a person would feel depressed. That's not an unusual response. Now I'm going to describe to you how you experience problems. Some of your problems spring up. Some of your problems spring up unexpectedly. Just as soon as you think you resolve one problem, then another one comes up. I think I've dealt with the health problem. Now all of a sudden I'm dealing with my car problem. I think I've dealt with the car problem. Now it looks like I got a financial problem. It looks like I've dealt with my relationship problem, but now it looks like I'm getting laid off on my job. Some of your problems spring up and you don't expect them. Some of the problems spring up just when you think you resolved some other problem. And then do you know that some of your problems remain unsolved under a cloud of denial? Do you know that many people are even in denial about the problems that they have? So when you're in denial about a problem, what happens is that problem comes up from time to time to haunt you, and then you hide the problem again and suppress the problem again, but you still keep it unsolved. So what was the point of that paragraph? The point of that paragraph was to make us aware that nobody can solve all the problems that the world has, because the problems of the world seems to be happening on so many different levels in such varying forms that's full of such varied content that they confront you with an impossible situation. So when you're being dealt with impossible situations, then it's natural that you're going to feel depressed. Some of your problems spring up unexpectedly, just as you think you resolved the previous problems. Other problems remain unsolved because we're in denial about the problem. And then that problem that we're in denial about, it comes up to haunt us from time to time. And then the Course in Miracles says, then you turn around and you had the problem again, but you still haven't dealt with it. Are you with me? Why am I repeating it over and over again? Because remembering the Course in Miracles is the key to having the miracles of healing that the Course in Miracles promises. Remembering the Course in Miracles explanations and using those explanations, that's the key to having the problem solved that you want to have solved. So what's the key to solving the problem that you have right now? Recognizing that that problem is nothing but another manifestation of one problem, my sense of separation from God, your sense of separation from love and truth, your sense of separation from your Creator. If you knew your Creator and you knew your relationship to your Creator and you were in communication with your Creator and you allowed yourself to learn how to release all the blocks that keeps the Creator from expressing to you and through you, then the problem that you think you have would be gone. So if you tell yourself that your problem is anything other than a problem in terms of your relationship with your source, your Creator, then you don't really know what the problem is. And so the problem won't be solved. And the problem won't be solved because it will just keep changing into different forms and different appearances. So it'll look like you solved the problem, and just as soon as you thought you had the problem solved, then another problem comes up. Some of the problems, you're hiding them from yourself, and you might be in denial about the problem. So the problem rises up to cause you problems from time to time. So what do you do about that? Well, this is complexity. And what is complexity? Complexity is a desperate attempt not to recognize the problem. And do you know that if you don't recognize the problem, then the problem cannot be resolved? So when you make your problems complex, when you see the situation that you're dealing with as a very complex situation or a very complex problem, that is an attempt of your ego, the part that doesn't want you to have peace. Seeing your problems as complex is a desperate attempt not to recognize the problem and therefore not to let the problem be resolved. If you see your problems as complex, if you see yourself having a lot of complex issues, then that will not allow the problem to be solved. that attitude will not allow the problem to be resolved. Are you aware that the Course in Miracles said earlier that if you were to see it as if you have anything other than one problem, then that's a guarantee that you will continue to have problems show up from time to time. So what is it that would allow you to accept this answer that you're getting? What is it that would allow you to see the relevance of this answer of separation being the problem that you're getting? Just recognize that your only problem is separation. My only problem is my sense of separation from God. My only problem is my sense of separation from God. Your only problem is your sense of separation from God. Your only problem is your relationship or lack of relationship with God. Your only problem is your lack of relationship and lack of communication and lack of connection with God. Your only problem is not knowing your connection to God. Your only problem is not knowing your connection to love. Love is God. God is love. The only problem is lack of love. The only problem is the lack of love. The only problem is the lack of unity and connection to our source. The only problem that you have is that you have not cleared away all the blocks to your relationship and your communication with your source. So if you could just recognize that your only problem is separation, no matter what form the separation takes, your only problem is separation, right? If I think I'm in lack right now, my only problem is I feel separate from abundance. If I'm full of conflict right now, that's because I'm feeling separate from my feelings of peace. If I'm feeling angry right now, it's because I'm feeling separate from love. If I'm feeling afraid right now, it's because I'm feeling separate from happiness. So my only problem is separation. My only problem is separation. Your only problem is what? Separation. No matter what form the separation takes. And would you be willing to consider that you could accept that answer? And if you were to accept that answer, then you would see the relevance of the answer. And you would find the problem that you think you're having would vanish. You would find that that problem would be resolved in your own mind. That problem that you think you're going through would be resolved. If you were to just tell yourself, I have one problem, I don't have a lot of different problems. And no matter what I think my problem is, my only problem really is I need to get rid of every block that keeps me from knowing my connection to my Creator. That's the answer. I'm giving you the answer, but you may not see the relevance of the answer. Why is it that you might not see this as a relevant answer to what you think you're going through? Because you think your problem is not a God problem, that your problem is not a love problem, a truth problem. Then it says, perceiving the underlying constancy of all the problems that seem to confront you, seeing the underlying constancy of every problem that seems to confront you, since it's all just the same problem, underneath all my problems and all my issues, there's just one problem. I don't know my connection to God. I do not know my connection to my source completely yet. So if you recognize that your only problem is separation, that your only problem is any block that you have that keeps you from being in communication with God, then you would also understand that you have the means to solve all of your problems. If I only have one problem, my separation from love, my separation from God, my separation from truth, and I'm studying A Course in Miracles, and the Course in Miracles, the purpose of the Course in Miracles is to help me heal that sense of separation. The purpose of the Course in Miracles is to undo all the blocks to the awareness of God and the awareness of love. The purpose of the Course in Miracles is to correct your perception so that you can really be in communication with your source. Because your source, God, is telling you exactly what to do in every situation that you think you're in. You're constantly getting guidance from the higher power, but you don't hear it. You're getting guidance from the still small voice of God, but you don't hear it. Why is it that you don't hear your guidance? Because you think the problem is something other than your relationship or lack of relationship with God. You think it might be somebody else needing to speak or act differently. You think that the problem is you need to be in a different situation or circumstance. You think that the problem is something that somebody outside of yourself that need to be different in some kind of way in order for you to be happy. Do you know if you believe that, then that means you haven't recognized what the problem is. And since you haven't really recognized what the problem is, which is your sense of separation from God, then you are not taking advantage of the answer. And so since you're not taking advantage of the answer, which is your sense of separation from God, and using the Course in Miracles in order, or any truth curriculum in order to get past that block, then you fail to get rid of your problems and they just keep changing form. But if you recognize you do have the answer to your problem, then you could use the means to get rid of your problem because you recognize the problem. If the light in my living room, if the lamp in my living room is not working, and I recognize that it's because it's not plugged in the wall, then the instant that I recognize the problem, that my lamp is not plugged in the wall, then I also recognize the solution. And what is the solution? To plug the lamp in the wall, so in the electrical outlet. So the minute I recognized the problem was the separation of the lamp from the electrical outlet, I also recognized the solution, which is to plug the lamp in the electrical outlet. So the lamp and the electrical outlet are no longer what? Separate. So the problem was a form of separation. But if I thought the reason why the lamp wasn't on was because I had the refrigerator door open, then that problem of the lamp not being on would not be solved, because that's not the problem. What's going on with my refrigerator has nothing to do with my lamp not working. So if you think the problem is something other than what the problem really is, then can't you see that the problem cannot be solved? Does that mean that the problems that you have, or that you think you have not been able to resolve, means that you don't truly, really recognize what the problem really is? That is exactly what the Course in Miracles is saying. Any problem that you have not been able to solve is a problem that you don't really know what the problem really is. So what are we going to do, since this is a practical application of the Course in Miracles class? Well, in our practice, we're going to ask what the problem really is, and we're going to ask what is the answer to the problem. So I would like to ask you to do that right now. Ask what the problem is. Okay, Spirit, I ask what the problem is. I ask, what is the answer to the problem? What is the answer to the problem? What is my problem? What is the answer to my problem? What is this problem? What is the answer to this problem? I don't care if it's a health problem, a spiritual problem, a financial problem, or a relationship problem. You want to do exactly what you're being told to do right now. We are being told to ask what the problem is, and then to ask what the answer to the problem is. That means we won't assume that we already know what the problem is. What is it that you are not supposed to do? Do not assume that you already know what the problem really is, especially if you haven't been able to solve the problem. If you haven't been able to solve a problem, it's because you don't know what the problem really is. And in a situation that you have not been able to solve the problem, it means you are making a mistake about what you think the problem is. And if you tell yourself, I think the problem is separation, but I still have the problem, then the truth is you're telling the truth about the problem, which is that it's separation, but you haven't really accepted that that's the problem yet. You're practicing. So what is it that we're going to try to do to our minds? We will try to free our minds. What is it that we are going to free our minds of? We're going to free our minds of all the many different problems we think we have. Let go of all the different problems you think you have. Free your mind of all the many different kind of problems or issues or things that you think you're dealing with right now. How do you free your mind? How do you free your mind of all the many different problems that you think you have? Would you like to know how you would free your mind from all the different problems that you think you have? You would realize all you have to do to free your mind of all the many different problems you think you have, all you have to do is realize that you have only one problem. Realize we will try to realize that we have only one problem. We have only one problem. We have only one problem. There is only one problem. There's only one problem. There's only one problem. Tell yourself, I only have one problem. I only have one problem. I only have one problem that I haven't recognized. I just have one problem, but I don't recognize that. You only have one problem. No matter how many problems you think you have, no matter how complex you think the problem is, there is only one problem, the problem of separation, and we don't recognize it. So we're going to ask what the problem is, and then we're going to wait for the answer. Ask what the problem is, wait for the answer. Ask what the problem is, wait for the answer. We will be told what the answer is. But first, I have to admit I don't know what the problem is, then tell myself I only have one problem that I'm not recognizing. I'm going to ask what the problem is. I'm going to wait for the answer, and we will be told. You will be told what the answer is. So we will ask for the solution to the problem right now. Ask for the solution to your problem. I ask for the solution to this problem. I ask for the solution to this problem. I ask for the solution. I ask for the solution. We ask for the solution to this problem. Ask for the solution to your problem. Right now. Right now. Go. I ask for the solution to this problem. I ask for the solution to this problem. And you will be told. What is it? What is it going to make what is going to make this successful? Well, you're going to be successful to the extent that you don't insist on defining the problem. You will be able to receive the answer from God if you stop trying to define the problem according to what you think the problem is. When you stop making up what you think the problem really is, then you will be successful at receiving the solution to the problem that you have right now. If you will stop trying to define what you think the problem is for yourself by yourself, then you will be successful in receiving the solution to the problem. Perhaps you won't succeed in letting all your preconceived notions about what the problem is go. You may not be able you may not be able to completely let go of your preconceived notions about what you think the problem is. But do you know it's not necessary? It is not necessary for you to let go of all your preconceived notions about what the problem is. It's not necessary for you to let go of all your preconceived notions about what you think the problem is. Listen to me now. Listen to me. It's not necessary that you completely be free of what you think the problem is. The only problem is a God problem. The only problem is a creator problem. The only problem is I don't feel connected to my divine self. The problem is I've lost sight of my spiritual identity. And now I think that I'm a person that's out here on my own, trying to solve my problems on my own. And that usually means I'm trying to come up with what the thing is outside of myself that needs to be different in order for me to be happy. I'm using my mind to try to come up with how everybody around me needs to be different in some kind of way in order for me to be happy. But that is not the problem. The problem is that I am not aware of my connection to my source. That's your problem. And so as long as you think you got many problems and you think the problem is other than a God problem, a spirit problem, then you're going to keep the problem. But the problem is going to keep changing form so that it's going to look like as soon as you got one thing handled, then another thing comes up. So what's necessary? So what is the main thing that's necessary? Since it's not necessary for you to necessarily let go of all your preconceived notions about the problem, so what is necessary? What's necessary is for you to entertain some doubt about the truth of your version of what you think your problem is. All that's necessary is to entertain some doubt about the reality of your version. Start doubting what you think the problem is. What? I just want you to doubt what you think the problem is. What are you trying to recognize? What is Spirit trying to get us to recognize? Spirit is trying to get us to recognize that you've been given the answer by recognizing what the problem is. You'll recognize that you've been given the answer. If the problem is separation from God, separation from love, separation from the source, then obviously the answer is for me to do everything that I possibly can to let go of every block that keeps me from knowing that I'm connected to God. The Course in Miracles is one way of doing that. The Course in Miracles is one way that you can learn how to let go of all the blocks that keep you believing that you're separate from love and separate from abundance and separate from your source and separate from freedom and separate from peace. You are trying to recognize that you've been given the answer by recognizing the problem. Because you want to do what? What is it you want to do? Well, you want to recognize that you've been given the answer by recognizing the problem so that the problem and the answer can be brought together. I got this problem, I want to bring it to the answer. I got the problem, I want to bring it to the answer. Because if I bring the problem to the solution, then I can be at peace because the problem is gone. So you can be at peace because the problem is gone if you bring the problem to the solution. And in a solution other than God, in a solution other than the connection to your source, and doing everything in your power to get rid of your lack of faith and lack of connection to your source and your lack of awareness of your connection to God, unless you do everything possible to get rid of that separation, you will just continue to have complex problems that continue to change appearance and form. So we're going to do these exercises, and they're going to be set. When we do these exercises, it's going to be set by need. You are to use your exercises when you're most upset, when you're most afraid, when you're most thinking that you have a problem. You will see many problems, and it will look like each one of your problems or each one of the problems in the world are calling for an answer. So what are our efforts going to be directed toward? What direction are we going to put our efforts? Well, we're going to put our efforts toward recognizing. We're going to put our efforts toward recognizing what? You're going to put all your efforts toward recognizing there is only one problem and one answer. There's only one problem. There is only one answer. There is one problem, one answer. You have one problem. There's one answer for your one problem. There is only one answer for your one problem. You only have one problem. There's only one answer. We are going to put our focus on that one idea. What idea? There's only one problem and one answer. 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 There are not many problems with many answers. There are not many problems with many answers. But while you think the one problem is many problems, it will look like once you realize there's only one problem, then it will look like the many different problems are being solved in many different ways. Once you realize that there is only one problem and one answer. So you will see many problems, and it will look like each one of those problems is calling for an answer. We want to recognize one thing. What is the one thing that you want to recognize? Come on, you know, what is the one thing you want to recognize? You want to recognize that you have only one problem. See, just the idea that you only have one problem should be pretty relaxing. So there's only one problem, there's only one answer. And do you realize when you recognize there's only one problem and one answer, there's only one problem, separation, there's only one answer, joining, connecting with our source. It's in that recognition. In this recognition are all problems resolved in this recognition. And what recognition? I only have one problem and there's only one answer. There's only one problem and there's only one answer. In this recognition, there is peace. So what is it that you need to make sure that you are not deceived by? What is it that you need to absolutely make sure that you're not fooled by? Don't be fooled by the form of problems. Don't be fooled by all the different forms that it looks like your problems take. Don't be fooled by looking like you got a relationship problem, a finance problem, a health problem, a career problem, a spiritual problem only. The Course in Miracles is saying, don't be deceived by the form your problems take. So what do you do whenever any difficulty seems to come up, whenever any problem seems to come up, whenever any difficulty seems to rise? What is it that the Course in Miracles tells you that you need to do whenever it looks like you have a problem or a difficulty? What is it that you're being told to do whenever it looks like there's a problem or a difficulty? Tell yourself. Notice that it says, whenever any difficulty seems to rise, tell yourself. What? Tell yourself quickly. What is it that you need to tell yourself quickly whenever any problem seems to come up? Whenever any difficulty, whenever you're having any kind of difficulty, what is it that you need to quickly tell yourself whenever you're having any kind of difficulty? What is it that you need to tell yourself? What is it that I need to tell myself when it looks like I'm having a problem or a difficulty? This is what you should tell yourself quickly. Let me recognize this problem so it can be solved. Let me recognize this problem. I'm having this financial problem. Let me recognize this financial problem so that it can be solved. Let me recognize my health problem so my health problem can be solved. Let me recognize my mental problem so my mental problem can be solved. Let me recognize the problem so that the problem that's this thing that's bothering me, this problem can be solved. Whenever any difficulty comes up, whenever any kind of problem comes up, tell yourself, quickly tell yourself, let me recognize this problem so it can be solved. And when you say that, say, let me recognize this problem so it can be solved, then try to suspend all your judgments about what you believe the problem is. Stop telling yourself, if I just had not trusted my cousin and I loaned him that money and he never did pay me back, and that's the problem is I need to get him to pay me back. No, you need to suspend all judgment about what you think the problem is. If possible, what should you do? If possible, close your eyes for a moment. Close your eyes for a moment and just ask what the problem is. So if some difficulty comes up, tell yourself quickly, let me recognize the problem. Let me recognize this problem so it can be solved. I'm going to suspend all my judgments about what I think the problem is. I'm going to close my eyes if I can, and I'm going to ask God, Spirit, Holy Spirit, what the problem is. You will be heard. If you go through this process, if you actually do what the Course is saying, you will be heard and you will be answered. So I'm going to do a quick recap where we applied this in just a minute. I'm a full-time teacher of A Course in Miracles. If you'd like to make a financial expression of appreciation, I would really appreciate that. I would be very grateful for that. You can go to my website, www.earlpurdy.com. You can use Venmo, you can use the Cash app, you can use PayPal, and you can use Zelle. All you need is my email address. My email address is Earl Purdy, Purdy, Earl Purdy at earlpurdy.com. Okay? I'm also available for one-on-one counseling, coaching, and mentoring sessions where I will work with you on issues that you're dealing with using the principles of the Course in Miracles and my 40 years of New Thought learnings and teachings, and we will bring that to your situation together to give you a resolution. That's called a clarity session. Go to my website, earlpurdy.com. You can get all the details about it, and you can self-book a session with me right from my website. For those who are open to the intuitive arts, I'm also an astrologer and a numerologist, and I'm available to give you messages from Spirit through that medium also, if you're open and receptive to it. Sundays at 1 p.m. Mountain Time on the Earl Purdy page, On Facebook, I do another Facebook Live on A Course in Miracles. On Sunday, if you want to come in person to that class and you're in the Denver, Colorado area, then it's at 1555 Race, R-A-C-E, Race Street here in Denver, Colorado, 80206. 1555 Race Street here in Denver, Colorado. Thursdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. I do Hardcore Course in Miracles. That's what you're looking at and listening to right now, and it's only online on the Earl Purdy page. I upload all of my classes onto YouTube, so you can also watch hundreds of classes that I've done on YouTube, Earl Purdy, and also on my website and also on Facebook. I'm just here to be truly helpful. I'm here to represent the God who sent me. I don't have to worry about what to say and what to do because I know Spirit that sent me will direct me, and that I will be healed as I let Spirit teach me to heal. That's the healer's prayer. So here we go. I appreciate you all, especially those who take time to join live so that we can interact with each other. I look at all the comments, and I want to thank you for watching the replays. And remember, repetition. So you need to listen to this or watch this at least 4 times. At least 4 times. Are you ready? Here we go. Don't forget that you don't have many problems. If you tell yourself you got many problems, then that's going to keep your problem from being solved. So you want to tell yourself, you want to recognize that you only have one problem. There is only one problem. There is only one answer. There is only one problem. There is only one answer. There is only one problem, one answer, one problem, one answer. The problem is separation. And the answer is joining with God. The problem is separation from God. The problem is in your relationship with your higher power. The problem is separation. You only have one problem. If you tell yourself you have many different problems, you're creating a perception that's going to make you unsuccessful at solving your problems. So whenever any difficulty seems to arise, whenever any difficulty seems to come up, tell yourself, let me recognize this problem so it can be solved. Let me recognize this problem so this problem can be solved. Let me recognize this problem so this problem can be solved. As soon as you're confronted with some type of difficulty, as soon as you're confronted with any kind of problem, quickly tell yourself, let me recognize this problem so it can be solved. Let me recognize this problem so this problem can be solved. Suspend all your judgments about what you think the problem is. Let go of what you think the problem is. Try to suspend your judgment about what you think the problem is and tell yourself, let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. And if you're in any place where you can close your eyes, you close your eyes for a moment, and then ask what the problem is. What is this problem? What is this problem? What is this problem? What is the problem? What is the problem? What is the problem? And when you do that, you will be heard and you will be answered. What is it that we need to direct all of our efforts toward? You need to direct all your efforts toward recognizing that there is only one problem, one answer. So if you're having problems in any area of your life, what you need to do is put your focus on healing your relationship with God. God is love, our creator. I'm not talking about a God of punishment. I'm not talking about a God that's telling you how sinful and bad and you going to hell. I'm not talking about that. That's not God. That's fear. God is love. God is helpful. God is healing. God is all that is. God is spirit. So you want to have connection with your source. You want to allow the divine to work in your life, to come through, correct your perception, change your perception so that the situation can be resolved. So whenever you have any kind of difficulty, whenever it looks like there's another kind of problem coming up, tell yourself, and tell yourself quickly, let me recognize this problem so it can be solved. So let's say that for a minute as we complete. Let's say this for a minute. Are you ready? Are you ready? Here we go. Let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Tell yourself right now, let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let you recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let me recognize this problem so this problem can be solved. You know the problem that I'm talking about. You know the problem that I'm talking about. Say, let me recognize this problem so this problem can be solved. Let me recognize this problem. Let me recognize this problem so this problem can be solved. Let me recognize this problem so this problem can be solved. And let you recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. And let you recognize the problem so the problem can really be solved. And let you recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Mighty companion, I'm all about the practical application of the Course in Miracles this year. That's what I'm going to focus in on. Not all of the theory, not all of the analyzing, but what are we being told to do? Let's do it together. Let's join, because the problem is separation, so that this problem can be solved. But if you tell yourself you got a lot of different problems that need a lot of different answers, then you have put yourself in a perception that will make your problem solving inadequate and failure inevitable. Put all your energy into recognizing there's only one problem and one solution. Mighty companion, this is Earl Purdy. Please share this video. Please share this video. I'm so grateful for you. And I'm going to listen to this and watch this over and over again, and I read all of your comments, and you are a blessing in my life. So let us recognize the problem so that the problem can be solved. Mighty companion, may the Course be with you.